Yo, what's up guys? It's your boy Smalls with Thoughts from the Bench. Welcome to the Vault. Like I said, brought to you by Thoughts from the Bench, the weekly show that takes a look back at some of the best and worst sports jerseys of all time. I'm joined, as always, by the funniest co-host on the internet, Mr. Benny Buckets. Ben, we made it. We're here. We're alive.
We're here. The big debut, man. We made it through the preseason. We're in the big leagues now. I'm ready to get this show on the road.
Let's go, buddy. So, before we actually get started, just because I feel like this has been a culmination of things, at least on my end, wanted to give you guys a quick background on what the Vault actually is. If you saw the promo, I'm sure you can kind of tell that it is just about sports jerseys. But first and foremost, I've always been fascinated with jerseys, different eras of sports, old players, yada, yada, yada. When I first actually started writing for the bench, probably about 2 years ago now, the favorite thing I did, week in, week out, was the Vault. I started writing the Vault every week. Basically, I just came in with 5 different jerseys each week and picked kind of a theme. Not all the time, but sometimes I kind of picked a theme. And I kind of went into just a brief history, along with kind of what my thoughts are on the jersey. These jerseys could literally be anything. They could be awesome looking, they could be fucking terrible. They could be super rare ones that you only see on like Christmas Day, St. Patty's Day, whatever the case may be. Really, like, nothing was off limits. I love it. I absolutely love it. By the time COVID actually hit, I'd begun to toss around an idea of bringing this to an online show. Tried a few things out. It didn't really work that well. I don't feel comfortable talking to myself on camera. But enter this guy right here, Benny. I swear, man, you're making this whole thing come to fruition, and I truly appreciate it.
Hey, man, honestly, I'm just happy we can kind of tag team it because, like I said from the jump, I love the idea. I love the concept. And that was one of the articles that I genuinely was reading every time that got put out through Thoughts on the Bench. So the fact that you asked me to be a part of it, I'm super honored, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm ready to talk about some sick fucking unis, man.
Fuck yeah. So, concept of the show is very simple. We just want to flex our love of jerseys. So each week we're going to each come prepared with 3 jerseys to match that week's theme or topic or whatever you want to call it. We'll mix some different things in there too, but that's just the general outline for now. And we'll sometimes sip on some drinks as we do it. So, Ben?
Cheers, pal. This is our first episode. Cheers, too.
Yeah,
that's good. This is the pilot. That's good. That's good.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, the pilot where you were sipping on some what tequila was it?
I had whenever we were shooting the prelims for this, the first episode that we had, I was drinking out of a bottle of Patron that was about this big. But it was enough. I actually still have the bottle somewhere. Maybe I'll bring it up for remnant's sake later. But I'm not doing that tonight. Tonight I'm having a nice, I guess, coffee mug of Captain and Coke this evening. What about yourself there, Small?
So, JMO is an absolute favorite of mine. I make this IPA edition Caskmates. I sound like a douche when I say it out loud, but it's
still Jameson though. So any of our whiskey drinkers out there, you can raise a glass, and the whole IPA Caskmates edition. If you're a prude, and maybe leave that out. But I still salute it. I'm happy that you went with any Jameson product, so I'm fine with it.
Awesome, man. Well, let's get into it. So Ben, in your opinion, what's the best decade out there, outside of sports? What you got?
Aside from sports, I think the best decade period That's tough because I say that I always want to grow up in like every other time other than this one. But I don't know. Part of me is really into like and this is going to sound super dumb, but like the 1920s, like before the Great Depression. I don't know. I just feel like I'm kind of drawn to that era, but there's so many different time periods that I guess like if I got a panic, I might say that was also before the internet and everything. I'd probably be a lot stress free more than I am now. But I'm not sure, man. What about you?
Well, that's the wrong fucking answer because it's the 90s.
Okay,
Dude,
all right. Well, I didn't know if you were lobbing up a softball to me or if you were fucking curving it. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
I tried to lob it up for you, but it was a big old Jeremy Burnett's swing and a miss right there.
Oh, so. Dear God. All right. Well, roll into this, Smalls, because evidently I assume that what we're talking about today has to do with the 90s.
Yep, absolutely. So, soccer boppers, super soakers, fucking got milk ads, Friends, even though it's probably the most overrated show of all time, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I don't want to start any fights. It's a decent show. It's not a bad show, but not the best show of all time.
See, when you're talking about shows, I'm thinking like at least childhood, like All That, The Amanda Show.
Oh yeah.
Those like live action Nickelodeon shows. That's where my head goes, and I love some of the toys you were bringing up, like Soccer Boppers. That's a 90s classic.
Oh yeah. Just the wardrobe back then, it looks like the colors people were wearing, it looked like people were trying to look like Crayola boxes. It was a wild time, man. It was a wild time. But when I personally think 90s sports, which we are sort of a sports show, two things come to mind. I grew up in a Big Ten household, Penn State household. I think 90s Big Ten football. I know. I get it. It wasn't even really that great of football. I get it. Punt, run, punt, whatever. The other one, 90s NBA basketball, which brings us to this week's topic. I feel like this one was almost a softball. I couldn't not start this one with the inaugural episode. I feel like you got to be excited about this.
Oh, I'm pumped. For anybody who knows anything about me background-wise, I'm a basketball guy through and through. I love all sports. I mean, I can sit down and talk with you about any sport you want, but if we're talking basketball, that is the most enthused me that you're going to get. And this just makes me really happy that this is what we're starting with, especially because, I mean, I know you and me were talking about this before, is like there's so many that I could have pulled from this era, genuinely, that like, I mean, it's hard to narrow down, I'll be quite honest, just because I feel like you were saying, like when you were making a reference to just how style was back then, I'll admit, it was fucking weird.
Oh, yeah.
But like overall, it also kind of brought some things where like you were like, that's kind of cool. And especially now, us being in an era where to even say that the 90s was 20 years ago is nuts to me.
I know.
But that being such a retro thing, I feel like that almost adds some bonus nostalgia and like some cherishment from us for that time period, because they just had some sick ass uniforms back then.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, and we'll probably get into it too, but back then they were considered horrendous. That's the thing. Like,
for the time period, they were thought to be like, oh man, I can't believe my team's sporting this, and now I'm on a fucking pre-order list for half these jerseys. Like, I swear, man, things come full circle eventually.
Oh yeah. So, and there's also, we'll get into it, just in a sec too, but I feel like I'm not the biggest NBA basketball guy, only because I feel like my forte, I trend more towards football, college football especially. But even as a kid, man, there was something about the 90s, early 2000s NBA, and I don't want to say that the NBA isn't kid-friendly now, but it almost felt like it was just so cool to like the NBA as a kid. It was just different.
And I think even in pure NBA fans, if you've been an NBA fan for a while, have to agree that genuinely was the best era for basketball. That was when basketball was basically seen as top dog in America because that was when Michael Jordan was the fucking guy, like for all of sports. He was the most famous man on the planet for an entire decade. And so that brought a lot of gravitational pull towards the sport in and of itself. And you had guys that were popping off like Shaquille O'Neal, Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant. You had all these stars that were doing such crazy things that were bringing attention to a sport that was thought to be on the back burner in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it is now, but it's definitely not as prominent as it was back in that time period. So I think that's why also it's easy for us to talk about the 90s uniforms, because anyone who was around, the entire world's eyes were on the NBA for a few years in that time period.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I don't have sound on this, but I think I found this. It's a Nike ad with Charles Barkley. Ben, you can see this, right? I think this is what it's all about. And, you absolutely have to.
Why did I completely forget that this existed? This dude, this dude is dunking on Godzilla. And for anybody who knows Charles Barkley now being the human milk dud that he is, if that doesn't make you laugh, there's something fucking wrong with you. Him being on the TNT NBA night crew with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Shaq. Even if you're not a basketball fan, anyone can get enjoyment out of that show just because of the way that they are with each other. But like, if you see Charles now, it is genuinely baffling to me that he ever was like a long-term and good NBA player. Like, It is nuts to me. But that ad, that's awesome. That goes down as one of the best ads for me, along with like the commercial where Michael Jordan is with his mom.
Yeah,
and she goes to dunk the basketball, and it turns into some dude with an afro and a mustache. Dude, that's one of the best like bad ads of all time.
Well, and I think that's kind of what drew like obviously we were kind of the tail end of the 90s. Like we were, I don't want to call us fake 90s kids, but we were picking up the.
We're
the
half-assed
scraps,
90s kids.
You know?
We're half-assed 90s kids. So we were literally born in the middle of the decade.
Yeah,
so
it's
it
like,
is what it is.
It's like being at the bar at 2 a.m. You're there for scrappy hour, but hey, you get the trickle down.
You made it. Yeah.
So Ben, without further ado, I want to get to your first pick. I mean, all of these, I love every single one of them. Even we have some honorable mentions too at the end. I love every single one of them. But why don't you kick us off with your first one?
All right, so my first one is this classic Toronto's Raptors jersey. Most people obviously are going to know it from Vince Carter's days in Toronto. This is one that we don't really see a lot of anymore. This goes back to something that Smalls and I affectionately talk about all the time, is the kind of cartoony logos. I think that the physical Raptor being in full basketball kit is pretty sick. And in the color scheme, again, didn't make a whole lot of sense because for a while, I mean, they weren't like this before, and then after they kind of transition out of like the purple, but I kind of like that the purple is their solid color, and the red you would think might clash, but those like weird white, I don't know, like lightning bolt strands that go down the side, it's just it's different, and it's almost like kind of figuring out what the hell they're trying to do. But I think that the numbers and the font of the actual lettering on there kind of brings you to like a Jurassic Park mindset, which if you kind of think 80s, 90s, that was also a very pop culture phenomenon. So I think them kind of adding that into being the only Canadian franchise in the NBA too, they were like, you know what, we need to do some things, draw some attention. And I think that what they did with their wardrobe here was awesome. And this is one that I actually, no joke, I'm on a pre-order list for a Vince Carter purple Raptors jersey. So I'm looking forward for when that comes in. And I know at the time that people might have thought it was too goofy or it was too unorthodox, but I think now we look back at that and we're like, man, I wish the Raptors would suit up in that more often.
No, I agree. Like, and I'll get to it a little later too, but for whatever reason, purple on NBA jerseys just works. I don't know.
It does.
I don't understand
and more than any other sport, I feel like. Like I feel it's better. It's more universally accepted for basketball. And basketball is able to pull off some different colors, and I know
Yeah.
we'll obviously get into that later
Mhm.
as well, but like I feel like there's just something about the sport that makes things that might make you cringe in other areas not with
Yep.
basketball.
Yep. Absolutely. And I'll get into this. I feel like there's kind of a theme with like all these '90s NBA jerseys, and that's the graphic on the front is so
Hmm.
in your face almost, and like, and we've talked about, you mentioned the cartoony logos, which both of us love. Like that's nostalgia just by itself. But like,
Hmm.
there's something about the '90s NBA where they just like they threw a big ass, cartoon looking
I love
dinosaur
that.
on a jersey. Yeah, it's
I
awesome.
like because to me that is era specific. Like
Yep.
that is '90s. Like you figure, you look at teams nowadays. I mean, I challenge you to find someone with a logo like that on any of their jerseys. It's
Hmm.
either the team name, so it'll say, like say the Milwaukee Bucks for instance. It'll say Milwaukee on one of their jerseys and then Bucks on the other. They
Hmm.
got their numbers and that's it. Now that's not to say that there aren't some sick jerseys today in the NBA,
Hmm.
but it is nothing like it was back
Yep.
in the '90s. You don't get fire ass shit like this in today's NBA. You just don't.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And like, I feel like back in probably Jordan, that Jordan era where he was just starting to rise up, that was kind of the end of like, and the Bulls, the Bulls have, they're fine uniforms. I'm not talking shit on the Bulls uniforms. They're fine, but that was kind of the end of like that era of jerseys where it was just very traditional, very, I don't want to call it plain, but like there wasn't a ton going on outside of the team, name and
There
stuff.
wasn't. I think the best way for you to put it is you said traditional. Is that's what it was.
Yep.
It was classic, and I think that's why I almost kind of liked that the Bulls had never really done anything
Hmm.
like changing their jerseys, which I know a lot of people might give me backlash for. And actually, their new retro jerseys this year are pretty sick. I'm sure we'll get into an episode like that down the road.
Hmm.
So I don't want to take up too much time with it now. But like, I kind of like when some teams keep it classic like that. But I also like this kind of variety, and especially at the time, the Toronto Raptors were a newer franchise. Being able to come out with something like this was really cool to me, and this will always be one of my favorites for sure.
Yep, absolutely, man. I think that's a great pick, and I got to throw in Vince Carter too. Like just a few highlights here. I mean, he was like a generation of basketball for people.
Absolutely, and I especially like for us, like our age, like that was him, Kobe, Shaq, like that era of people. Especially that's when Vince was in his prime, was late
Hmm.
'90s, early 2000s. Is he was one of the first guys I think to really polarize our generation
Hmm.
and get us into basketball. We're watching this guy do unreal shit, like shit that I couldn't do on a Fisher Price hoop in my driveway. And dude is making it happen in real life against NBA players, the best of the best in the world. He was just one of the most electrifying people, period, in sports, especially at that time. So I think that also helps that he was playing for that team and he drew a lot of eyes towards that. And they're like, wow, those are actually some sick ass uniforms too.
Hmm.
Because I promise you, if Vince Carter didn't play for the Raptors, that might not even make our list.
Right. No, I agree. I completely agree. So, solid first pick. Absolutely love it.
All right, let's get to yours, man.
Pick number 1 from your boy Smalls. Houston Rockets. They had this at the time. It was considered horrible, and I get why. They had this from '95 to '03. And what was different about this one was the fact that it was blue. And even nowadays, they've gone back to their traditional color scheme, just that red, white, with a little bit of yellow. They had always done that until '95. They came around and changed it to this blue and made it completely different from from really what worked for them. Because people don't realize they had won back-to-back titles before they changed to this, which was a weird time to change that up. Like you like one of the best
If it
franchises.
ain't broke, don't fix it type
Yep,
shit. Yeah.
exactly. But like they went ahead and did it, and they had some decent teams afterwards too. But like, I love the pinstripes. I feel like the pinstripes that's a weird '90s NBA thing too. That like for some reason started
Yeah.
popping up. Like you got the Pacers, the Bulls had it too. The Magic with Shaquille O'Neal. Like for whatever, and these are weird looking pinstripes, but like this just screams 90s. Like there's no two ways about it. Now
I think my biggest thing is I actually, because we were just talking about this before, I like the logo. I like that being smack in the middle, and even the pinstripes don't bother me. I think what does bother me, at least as like a sports fan and what I'm used to and levels of comfortability, it probably honestly is the blue. Just because it was so fucking out of nowhere. Like they pulled the, like they were like, oh yeah, we like navy blue. Let's just throw that shit in there. Whereas like I feel like if they did this in a white or like a red, like if they made it a red jersey with still the white pinstripes and the same logo and everything, we might be talking about how sick of a jersey that is, like without anyone even raising any hands to it. Because I still think that these are badass.
Yep.
And I think like that's why like it makes you uncomfortable at first, but I like that they were that bold to go out of their comfort zone to make something so different from what they're traditionally used to.
Yep. No, definitely. And I mean, I want to touch on the logo too. Now that you brought it up, again, cartoony, fits the era, just that big, more graphic. Like I almost equate it to like the graphic tee, fad that we all went through growing up. Like
what do you mean growing up? I still have too many graphic tees.
What, you still shop at Aeropostale, bro?
Okay, wait a second. No, I don't have stitched shit on my shirt that says Arrow with a fucking whatever. Okay, don't insult me, Smalls.
We'll get to it. This might be a good sneak peek for next week. One of the worst college football jerseys of all time was the UConn football team. They had an Aeropostale brand football jersey. Instead of Nike, Adidas, any of that, Under Armour, it was Aeropostale.
You're fucking with me.
Nope.
I didn't know that.
UConn
There's no way.
Like 2004 or something? Yep.
Oh my god, please tell me this is when... Nah, that would have been after Dan Orlovsky, I think.
Like,
I was going to say, if that's while Dan Orlovsky was there, I'm going to flip my fucking lid. Oh, man.
Dude, well, I know this is definitely, like... I hope whoever's watching gets kind of used to this, because, like, I love when we just go on tangents like this.
Yeah, buckle in, pal, because it's going to be a long ride. So if you're watching us, we're going to try and stick to the topic. That doesn't mean we will, though.
All right, so it's this guy right here, and my internet connection is shit, but it is coming up right now. Ben, can you see that?
Yes.
There it is. Right.
Oh my god.
There. It was only for like a year. But man, that's a big old black eye on UConn football. Not that they're a program anymore, but like but back to 90's NBA. I mean, yeah, the logos, like I said, the big graphic logos, that's kind of where I was at. And like even if you look closely, like it just kind of looked like mean, like that rocket had that, the shark teeth Air Force thing that they put on the fighter jets. Like there was something about it that was awesome.
It was tough, and especially, I mean, I think you picked the perfect player to put in there too, because Hakeem Olajuwon is regarded as one of the best big men of all time. I feel like he kind of fit that persona, and that's something that you're gonna see a lot with a lot of our picks. Is that a lot of the jerseys that we pick were fit by a persona of the player. Like someone embodied that jersey, embodied that uniform that made it stick so heavily in our minds. And I mean, Hakeem the Dream, man, you couldn't pick anybody better to sport something that bold and that different.
Yep. Well, yeah, and I mean, people probably don't remember, but Scottie Pippen was on the team when they had these jerseys too. Charles Barkley was probably on the, last half of his
on the
career.
Latter half, yeah. He ended up, he was basically the replacement for Hakeem after Hakeem had left, and Charles sported those too. But man, what a time!
I know, dude, it's awesome. I love these. It just because they're just so different. They scream 90s, and because of that, I mean, it's nostalgia, man. That's why I picked it. Just pure nostalgia, nothing else. So, let's go to your second one, man. Love this one.
All right. So, some people might give me shit for this because it's already happened before. I have had some people tell me that this is the ugliest basketball jersey they've ever seen, and then there are other people who, like myself, and I'm hoping Smalls as well, think that this is just fucking funny. But funny to a point where I'm like, dude, Ray Allen was yamming on people's heads in these jerseys. Like, if you see the jersey to the right is number 34, and that's when Ray Allen was there. This is one of their alternate jerseys during the late 90s. And this goes back to kind of what we were talking about with the logos, but this isn't necessarily like cartoony. Like, it's not like Looney Tunes personality type. Like, it's genuinely like we asked a sketch artist, hey, draw me your best deer, and we're just going to blow that bitch up and put it on a jersey. The green and the purple, it works, dude. It's another example of that hint of purple, for whatever reason, working with this weird dark seaweed green that they got going on, and it just clicks. I love this because it was so different, and because, like, if you see in the picture, the logo goes into the lettering. Like, they interfere with each other, which is also something you're not used to seeing. Like, it's a team name or the city name, and then the logo is beneath it. Whereas these are kind of clashing into each other, and the fact that they incorporate three colors so well with hints of white in there too, I feel like it's well done. Some people are going to shit on this, but this is one of my favorites, and this is like this will always hold a place in my heart, and especially because everybody knows Ray Allen is a 3-point shooter. Ray Allen also could dunk on fucking anybody. And he was that guy when he was playing in Milwaukee. So I don't know, man. This is just one of my like. This one just clicks in my head when I think of 90s jerseys.
Yep, no, I agree. The only thing that bothers me is the way that deer is fucking looking at me. I don't like that. That's the only thing I don't really like. Like, everything else.
His eyes kind of follow you everywhere, huh?
That's creepy, but everything else about it's awesome. Like you said, the purple works. Big graphic drawing, cartoony look. And it's not super cartoony, but like it's
so large. 90s. If you look, It goes up from the waist to your neck, like the entire thing. The deer is incorporated in the entire jersey, in the whole thing. And I gotta admit, I wouldn't have even thought about the eyes until you said something, and now it's kind of bugging me. Like, that deer looks at me the way that Derek looks at me when I say something stupid. Like, it's that kind of look that just follows me anywhere I go. So, but aside from that, so thanks for ruining that.
Sorry.
No, I genuinely, though, I think just there is one that you can't pick a jersey, period, from any time period that is like that. Like, that was a standalone jersey in terms of the size of the logo, the way that it interferes with the font, and the font being something that we also haven't seen something like that reoccur. So I feel like in the color scheme, like in the fact that the logo is the same primary color as the jersey, just with the black and the white to kind of outline it, like it's so different. You can't really find any other jersey that's similar to that, and I think because it stands alone, that's why I wanted to pick it.
Yep. No, I agree. This is a fire second pick. Like, the colors, I think, by itself, and I know that this was just the team colors, but like I don't know, I feel like L.O. Bean had that on those colors on a jacket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, man, they should do a catalog of Bucks gear.
Fuck yeah.
And then they can charge you $300 for a tweed vest or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this jersey, because this is Josh Alsace's wet dream, even though he's probably a bandwagon Bucks fan. But
he didn't know who the Bucks were until Giannis Antetokounmpo decided to show up and start yamming on people. But Giannis also pays tribute to Ray Allen that we're seeing right now, because he also wears 34 for the Bucks, and I think that's pretty cool. Because realistically, in the history of the Bucks, if anyone fucking argues with me and says Brandon Jennings, I will fist fight you anywhere, anytime. Ray Allen is the greatest Buck to date until Giannis showed up, and so I think that Giannis taking his jersey number is also pretty cool, and I like that. So bonus points to the Bucks for that.
Bonus points for the Bucks. We're halfway through, so I'm gonna fill up. You don't have to fill up, but I'm gonna fill up.
I made this one a little tough. I'll be honest.
That's fine.
And I've been on a real big captain kick. I think just because it's cheap. And I'm kind of a rum guy, and rum gets me a little like dancey,
Mm-hmm.
and I like want to be in just like better moods, especially 2020's coming to a close,
Mm-hmm.
or it is at a close, and we're finally going to be able to embark on some new shit like this show, for instance. So like, I mean, life's already getting better.
Yeah. No, we're here, people. Like we're here. We're here to make your Friday, your hungover Friday afternoon at work, okay.
Yeah, or at least like a little bit confusing to the point where it keeps you up to figure out what the fuck we're talking about.
Right. Right. That's a perfect way to describe us, actually. So we're gonna move on to my number 2. This one, I hope is not controversial because I love these things. The Vancouver Grizzlies, back when they were in Vancouver, these jerseys were sick. I loved these jerseys like to no end. But
when they brought them back.
Yeah.
Memphis brought them back recently, so just with a Memphis version. But they're like, if you see anybody who watches John Morant play basketball, you've been able to see these kind of come back to light. And this is one of those cases, Smalls, that I was talking about where abstract colors fucking smack for this time period.
Yeah, no. Well, there's something about teal or aqua or whatever the fuck you want to call that. Again, that's 90s. I feel like you look at this jersey and like it's like a what do you call it? Like a fuck. Then what happens whenever a celebrity gets like their picture taken? A headshot. That's what I'm trying to.
Headshot.
That's a long way around for what I was trying to say, but a headshot of Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell hanging on a teenage girl's bedroom wall, and that's the background. It's just Zach Morris with Tio behind him. Like, it's just so 90s. It's not even funny.
I'm going to say some crazy shit. Maybe it's just because I'm a little teed up. But when we were doing this, or like when you're showing me this jersey, and at the beginning of the show, when you were talking about like things from the 90s and 90s toys, do you remember there were like these little things? I don't even know where the fuck you would get these from. So like I just know that like it was like a 90s thing. But they were like this big, like they were these little things with 2 little buttons that you would press. It had water in it, and you could shoot rings onto like tubes, bars.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, this jersey is fucking springing off memories of that shit, and I'm trying to get these little water loops onto fucking poles and shit in there. And I think maybe it's just because most of the backdrops were a similar color to this, but that's immediately where my mind goes. Has nothing to do with Grizzly Bears or Vancouver or anything like that, which that's another thing. What a shame that Vancouver lost a franchise, but I think Memphis brought them on pretty well, and I'm glad to see that they brought a little bit of that Vancouver style and started bringing these back. And I think especially coming in with a young star like John Morant is a perfect way to do it in bringing back something like this, because he's all for it. But these jerseys, man, especially at the time, like my boy Jason Williams, that's actually where he started his career, was with the Vancouver Grizzlies. So I got to watch some highlights of him playing with them. Then I didn't really get to start seeing him till he went to Sacramento, but that was definitely a good. Is that the thing? Is that what I was telling?
I think so. Is this what you were talking about, or is this like
they're like little square things? Like it's not exactly that, but I think it's kind of close.
Is it like
dude? It's honestly not even worth the search, I'll be quite honest, because I have no fucking extra info. Dude, like, it's like, if you know what I'm talking about,
I was trying to Google it, but is it this thing?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Like that guy right there.
Yeah. And there were like ones that I had that were like the backdrop just reminded me of those jerseys.
Yeah. So, dude, I love these things. I mean, these are just kind of different. Like, I feel like they kind of fit with the other 90s jerseys, but they were just kind of different. They didn't have the big logo. They basically just went with the name, but like
the font was cool, man.
Yeah.
And it made me think like okay, so the uniform itself didn't, but the font was like, oh, Grizzlies. Like that looks like if a bear had to pick a font, it's gonna fucking pick that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was down for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the trim around the sleeves and the neck too. Like this is very Pacific Northwest, like that's
Oh
exactly
yeah,
what
yeah,
this
yeah.
screams. And I mean, you don't really see anything like this anymore. Like
Mm-mm.
the way it was very very unique. And like obviously you have kind of the cartoony logo. It's not super cartoony, but like it's still that big, blocky style or whatever. I feel like Vancouver was kind of like a forgettable franchise. Why they were only there for like 5 years or something, right? They weren't there that long.
Yeah, it wasn't long, and I'll be honest, they did not play good basketball while they were there,
Mm-mm.
but they looked all right
Mm-hmm.
because I really fuck with these.
Yep.
I'll be quite honest.
Yep. Yeah. No. I mean, these are. I love these. Like this is just because of the color. Like I feel like there were a lot of teams in the '90s that kind of started doing this teal nonsense, like San Jose Sharks. I feel like
Mhm.
the Hornets kind of started around that time too. So it was a ripe time for just this color, and I feel like all '90s kids kind of resonate with this color scheme.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think like we were saying too, is just because it was different. Like it wasn't your typical black, white, navy, or red or whatever. Like it was something too that was just I don't know, man. Like it was cool, Like they and especially being the franchise that they weren't very good, but they were newer, and it was cool seeing a team like that look that different.
Right. Yeah, no, I was somehow able to find like the opening night for like first night franchise ever played basketball. And I think whenever I was doing research for this, I think Adam Silver actually pretty much came out and said like, they asked him what's the one city you wish you had a franchise in? He's like, I wish I could put one back in Vancouver, which is a crazy answer considering like Seattle's still out there, but
And Pittsburgh.
let's go. Well, do you think an NBA team would actually make it in
I
Pittsburgh?
absolutely do. I think they would. And here's my reasons why. I wrote a story about this a while back, but in a nutshell, they can play at the Pete because you know that I mean, especially right now in COVID times, it's not like we got to worry about crowd capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be a smaller crowd capacity anyway. The Pitt football team plays at Heinz Field where the Steelers play, so why not have the pro team play where the college Pitt team plays basketball? They could share the same arena, and you don't have to worry about making new seats or a new stadium or anything like that. You can just play there, and all you got to do is change the boards to have the logos different and everything like that. Then also, there is an overwhelming amount of people who genuinely have come out of the woodwork saying that they want a basketball team here. Now, there would obviously need to be plenty of signed petitions and stuff like that. Like you need to see real numbers from the city. But then also is just as long as we have someone who would be willing to bring a franchise here. There's a lot of speculation if Mark Cuban was going to or not. But he's just because he's a Pittsburgh guy originally, but he's so invested in Dallas and he's done such a good job over there that I think he just doesn't really want the pressure of bringing it here. So really, it would just be finding ownership to take over here. But if somebody would, I honestly think that it would transfer okay.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. What would the name be?
Okay, so I had one that I want to. Okay, that would probably work better for alternate jerseys, but I think that Steel City Stingers and we're like bees or some shit. I know that there's already the Hornets, but I think that wouldn't be so bad. And then okay, that's it. I thought I had something other than that, but
That's not bad. I put you on the
I
spot, so it's
well, and
fine.
even like if I'm thinking like for Pittsburgh, right? Like I mean, we got the Penguins, we got the Pirates, maybe the Pittsburgh Phantoms, and then ode to old Kennywood, the Steel Phantom, and
Oh
then
yeah,
maybe the Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh Blue Collars.
Pittsburgh Blue Collar. No, no.
That'd be pretty horrendous actually. Wait,
The
Pittsburgh
the
Thunderbolts, another roller coaster thing.
That's true. We got
Um,
the Pittsburgh um hmm, the Pittsburgh
it,
the
it, it,
Pittsburgh Permani sandwiches, and that can be their sponsor. All the NBA teams, they got a business sponsor now, so we could have them be sponsored by Permanis. Maybe the Pittsburgh Oakmont Bakery, if you want to
oh,
sponsor that. The Pittsburgh Milk Jugs Turners, you get on that. I don't know. Pittsburgh, you figure it out. I'm not going to be
I
actually,
already
no. You know what? I'm volunteering myself for the job of being the Pittsburgh whatever basketball team's PR person. So if we ever get this show on the road, get to me and we'll work out some creative ideas.
not well. I look forward to that because that'd be a Jackie Moon type franchise you'd be
Oh,
running right there.
I'm starting center. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm gonna start at center.
Turkey. It's only topical because we just did it, even though no one's ever really gonna see that. But
Nah, it's all right. We'll circle back around
we
to it
will.
eventually.
We will. Yeah, I mean, just to be clear for the people out there, one of the pilots we did 3 just kind of test episodes to get all the bugs out. Um, and frankly, it's still going to turn out like a shit show because I have no producing experience whatsoever, and
We're
I
rookies.
I have
We're
a
rookies
dinosaur of
here.
a laptop. But we are rookies. But we did iron out some of the the kinks, and one of the episodes we did was the best TV and movie jerseys of all time, and Jackie Moon was an obvious pick that came up. So just to give you guys a little teaser of what might come out at a later date. But moving on, I want to get to your third jersey because I think this one's almost an underrated pick.
I think so as well, and that's kind of why I decided to put it in my list instead of an honorable mention. Is just because I do like it. There's a purple variation of this, there's a white variation of this, but I think the black Suns alternate jerseys from the '90s is just awesome. The last era that we really got to see with it was Steve Nash in the early 2000s. And the Suns have done some decent jerseys since, but this is their best era to me in terms of uniforms. And I think that especially at the time when they released these, they had Charles Barkley, who was a star of the league, coming over from Philadelphia at the time, and that was new. He was making them competitive again. Him and Bill Paxton, who played with Jordan in Chicago, won a chip or two with the Bulls, was also playing there. The Suns finally had some recognition, and they came out with these. The white and the purple were still okay because I like the design of the sun coming all the way across the jersey, and it's saying sun super subtle. I like the name and the number separation in between the logo, like the way it's diagonal, but it still looks like it flows okay. And I mean, black and orange is a deadly combo. I mean, I'm a Pens fan through and through, but if the Flyers weren't playing in Philly and they weren't our bitter rival, I might like them. Like their uniform scheme, I think black and orange is just a tough combo. I like the Orioles for that reason. I feel like the black and orange color scheme works pretty well, and especially them doing that with hints of white and purple in there, like all 4 kind of flowed really well. And especially for that era of basketball, they weren't doing too much, they weren't doing too little, but they just looked tough.
Yep. No, and the rays of like sunshine that are going like right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's 90s as fuck. Like just the
Oh
way
yeah.
it looks, like it's like there's just something about that that's like simple but like kind of fire at the same time. And again, it's another purple jersey that just where did all these come from? Like did all these owners just like get into a room and be like, "Hey, like
Listen, buddy,
purple's the
there ain't
new
enough
fucking
purple, there ain't enough teal. You better switch up your fucking color schemes or we're leaving."
dude." It's a great jersey. Like Phoenix recently kind of brought it back, right? Like, or is it something similar that they have now, or
It's similar. They brought this year for their retros. Um, they got it says the Valley on it because there's some it's something related to fucking Phoenix out there, but it's primarily a black jersey, and they've got purple and white flowed in with it. So like they kind of brought back the same structure, but it's still not exactly the same. But I wish that they would bring these exact jerseys back just to come back. And honestly, even if you look at their court back then, I love the actual basketball is being right above the key. And then that like orange and purple being set into the court, I actually really like a lot. I just think that the Suns were such a cool team because what teams do you know dominate out in Arizona? You know what I mean? I think like it's an area that you almost want to root for. And I think when they first brought guys with a lot of experience like Charles Barkley and then Bill Paxson with his, championship experience, it kind of brought relevance to Phoenix for a franchise that nobody thought was ever going to be relevant. And then, we saw shades of that with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire, Sean Marion, and those guys. And then they brought Shaq aboard, and now they're trying to build something over there with Chris Paul and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. So I think, I would love to see them kind of go back to this, and maybe that'll help their play out a little bit. Because if you look tough, you play tough, or at least that's what they tell me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too PG-13, but Devin Booker, I mean, he's been known to be first in line of 7 dudes with 1 girl. I don't know if you heard about that.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, kids, this is
I'm just kidding.
This is where you head to bed now, kids.
I'm just kidding. That was no, there's no 2 ways about it. I shouldn't say.
All right, maybe we shouldn't drink on the show.
No, that's what makes it better, I'm telling you.
All right, so anyway. Well, who didn't do that? Steve Nash. Good luck to him out in Brooklyn coaching the Nets, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Doing Canada proud.
My favorite player growing up because I love fundamentals and I'm white. So.
Well, those are basically the 2 things to describe Steve Nash. So.
Yep. There we go. That one went off the rails, and that might be a preview for what's in store for the rest of what we have going on here. So
we're gonna go into Small's third and final pick here, and try and repossess the reins and get us home safe. Yeah.
Let's reel it in a little bit. That's what we're going for. So, third and final pick. This is my absolute. I think this is a top 3 jersey ever, any sport for me.
Any sport.
I love this.
Oh
thing.
my
Utah
God.
Utah Jazz. Had these things from 96 to 04. Obviously I'm not as big of an NBA guy as you. I'm a much more casual fan, but it's gonna sound weird, but I had a T-shirt with this logo on it as a kid. It was just a gift. I was not really a Utah Jazz fan, but I once I started watching basketball, they were like my team, like as much as I could be at age 6,
Yeah.
But like I had a T-shirt with this logo on it, and because of that, literally every time I see this jersey, it's just childhood, man. And this is more of a personal pick. I think these are probably some of the best ones out there, but there's just something about it that's they're so cool.
Well, I don't even think you need to say that it's a personal pick. These are just a fucking clean jersey, especially because there's that purple again. But I think like the font is very 90s, that almost like 2-tone, kind of like almost like metallic looking type deal. But the mountains make it, dude. The mountains in the background, especially it being area specific. I like when cities tie in things specific to their area.
Yep.
in with the jersey. And for anyone who's ever been out to Utah, and I'll tell you what, Salt Lake is beautiful.
Yep.
Genuinely, it is a beautiful area, and especially flying over it is
Mm-hmm.
even better than being there. If you ever get the chance to do that, I'm telling you that's one of the prettiest things I've ever seen in all the times I've flown.
Mm-hmm.
Flying over Utah was just awesome,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I think that goes to show too. Utah isn't a big sports hub. Even for college, they don't bring in a lot of fans. All they have are the
Mm-hmm.
Jazz. So that city takes a lot of pride in their team, and especially with the great duo that they had of Stockton and Malone back then in that time period. You had two super cool, very low key, nice guys leading a very super cool, low key franchise to a lot of success. Unfortunately, never a championship, but a lot of success in a super cool low key jersey that I think
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get as much hype as it probably should. But I think that this is one of the best basketball jerseys all time. I got to
Yep.
be honest. I got to start running through a bunch of other sports if we're going to talk best all time, period. But I
Yep.
think in basketball, this might be the precipice of the mountain of basketball jerseys.
Mm. I mean, yeah, I guess like if I'm talking best jerseys of all time, I want something that resonates with me or just being, just nostalgia in general. And I think it's exactly what this screams like. And to touch on what you said, like like me and a buddy coming out of school, drove from Pittsburgh to Denver, then Grand Canyon, like we were all over the West, and we drove into Salt Lake City the one night, it was probably like mid afternoon, and there was something about seeing like just the mountain range with the city, almost like Denver, where like there's just like the city like right underneath the Rockies right there, and
Yeah.
literally like the jersey looks exactly what it looks like driving into Salt Lake City, and
It's breathtaking, man. It is.
yep,
And I think the team did a really nice way of paying homage to the area
yep,
by doing this. And this is definitely one that a lot of basketball fans who've been or at least knowledgeable of the sport, or any sports fan should recognize this jersey because it really is. It was an instant classic. That was
hmm
one that was actually well accepted for its time period. I think that's like people just maybe were smarter about it then, that knew like this is going to be gas for a long time to come.
yeah, and I mean even I know we've harped on purple probably way too much at this point, but like. It,
Purple.
but like, dude, whenever you drive out there, like Utah or Salt Lake City, you just the sky almost looks purple with the mountains. It's weird, and
Well, and
like,
that's I kind of like. I mean, when I lived in Montana and stuff, they call that Big Sky Country, but I loop Utah into that as well. I think honestly, the entire Northwest, the skies you get out there, and a lot of people want to even refer to like sunsets and stuff like that. And granted, those are beautiful, but just the skies in general out in that area, I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, go out there and experience it for yourself because it's a different atmosphere, man. You
yep,
feel like you're in a different country or on a different planet. Like being in that area, any of those states, there's probably about 6 or 7 states I'd say in that realm that it's just a different atmosphere. And
hmm
Utah definitely fits in that category.
yep. Well, and even so, even beside that, because I feel like we're just having a love fest for Utah right now. Like, like
Yeah.
it, the era that these jerseys like that they came into play, like it was probably the height of basketball, right? Because
Absolutely. They were
like
battling Michael Jordan. They were the only
exactly.
team that, if we're going to be honest, sure, there was the Pistons and there were
hmm
the Rockets and the Supersonics. The only team that really ever made Michael sweat was the Utah Jazz. If we're going to be 100% honest,
Yep.
it was the Utah Jazz. They were the only people. And I firmly believe if Michael Jordan was not playing in the league, the Jazz would have won back-to-back titles. And
Yep.
I'll be honest because they did. They had the best team, and that duo of Stockton and Malone. I'm not trying to discredit any of the other guys who were on that team, but those two deserved to win a championship, and they just had to be in the league the same time as the arguable GOAT Michael Jordan.
hmm
So
hmm Yep. No, I mean they were probably. I mean, you're the NBA guy, so I'm gonna let you disagree with me if you want to, but I feel like they're probably the best team to never win an NBA championship. The fact that they went to two in a row,
Oh no, well,
and
I can agree with that 100%. There's no disagreement out of me. That's just a fact.
yeah,
There's other teams that I think would be close, but I think even other people who played against them back then, and people who are knowledgeable of that team since, should be able to tell you straight up that they deserved it more than anybody else who didn't win one.
right, but that's the thing. It was Michael Jordan, like
That was his time, man. They
that
they,
was
they
it.
just they got hot in Michael's era, and that's just not the time to do it. So
Yep, yep.
I wish that they did because I actually like both guys. You know, fucking Carl Malone is a farmer and a truck driver now. He still works. He drives trucks and he owns his own fucking farm. That's what he's doing with his life. He's a farmer. He's a fucking farmer, and he was one of the best basketball players of all time. And now he's wearing trucker hats and flannels and having a good fucking, I don't know, logger while he's, chucking hay or whatever the hell he does over there.
Dude, that's crazy. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Now, I have no idea what John Stockton's up to. He's probably collecting stamps or something, but Carl Malone he's a farmer and a truck driver, dude. How about that shit?
Dude, that's crazy. But John Stockton talked about white guys that know fundamentals. Am I right?
He did.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh
And
yeah.
and that was, I feel like he was Steve Nash before Steve Nash. And he
Absolutely.
kind of paved the way. And now
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's ever said this, but I guarantee that Steve Nash would agree with that
Mm-hmm.
as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some other point guards who are distribution first and only take high efficiency shots, like they feel like they should be the last option to shoot. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, and
Yep.
that's a true point guard, is you're supposed to be a facilitator.
Yep.
And I mean, John Stockton is potentially the best passer and or assister of all time. He's up there, and ironically enough, with another white Jazz great, Pete Maravich was also in that as well. Pistol Pete, for anybody who doesn't know. But I think John Stockton is definitely one of those guys that it doesn't matter what race, religion, background you come from. If you paid attention to basketball, you got to respect John Stockton because
Yep.
I mean, and I think, and Carl Malone will say this too. Carl Malone wouldn't have as notable of a career if it wasn't for John Stockton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I was. I guess I'm not really that shocked because they love the Jazz in Salt Lake City. But
Mm.
um, whenever I was there, I was pulling into like one of the main streets in town, John Stockton Boulevard. I was like, well, okay, this is a basketball town. Like, I know they don't have a
Heroes,
ton much else, but
heroes over there.
well, and it's really cool because like they don't have a, as far as like professional sports, they don't have anything else, and that's why this is really cool that a franchise, and they've been a good franchise even outside of this era. They've just never
Mm.
won it. They've been a. I was looking at basketballreference.com. They've been in the playoffs like probably more often than not, and that's hard to do as an NBA franchise. Like I feel like only the top dogs like Lakers, whoever else you want to put in that top category, the Jazz have been in the playoffs for years.
They're there, man, and that's the thing is I feel like they're always so close.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're close with no cigar, and
Mm-hmm.
that's unfortunate because I feel like, I mean, that state deserves something because what else
Yep.
they got the roof for? Mitt
The
Romney.
Mormons. No, the Mormons,
Yeah,
man.
Mitt
BYU.
Romney. That's about it.
BYU.
They got what's his nuts fucking Zach Wilson over there, not the Kiski alum for those of you who are closely attached to us. But they got the Cougs over there and then Mitt Romney. They ain't cost shit else. Jazz, please get your shit together and give those people a title. That's all I got to say. But going back to what we were saying, if you don't agree with us that this probably isn't the best, then I don't know.
Dude.
Please reconsider. I almost got real aggressive there, but I decided to go polite.
Well, I appreciate that, but another part of this too is like obviously we were kids growing up. We were young, but like this was it. This jersey was probably helped by the fact that Michael Jordan was the guy who beat these guys two
Hmm.
years in a row in the finals. Like it, this was the height of basketball, and because this was the team, this is like what I think of when I think 90s basketball. Only other note I want to make is these kind of look like, and I'm going to share my screen. These kind of look like the 90s milkshake cups. That's another thing I think of.
Hey, that's like mixing the Jazz and that Grizzlies one you put up. I think they smacked those two bitches into one, and you got that old cup. Oh my god, that
Yeah,
reminds me of like public pools and shit. Like that. That's the thing. Like
like
that's what
chicken
they gave
tenders.
me. Yeah, man. Yeah,
Oh my god! All right,
in a
so
basket that's got way too much paper for the chicken
oh
tenders.
yeah,
Like you could wrap your fucking car in the paper that they give you to put the fucking chicken tenders in there.
dude,
Anyway,
talk about nostalgia, man. All right, real quick, let's go over honorable mentions. Ben, who do you got?
so my first honorable mention is going to be those Sixers jerseys from when AI was playing there, because now everyone's into the red, white, and blue Sixers, and that's kind of what they were back in the day. This was so different for them. The black and the white jerseys with that logo that said Sixers with the star and the gold sway underneath was so different. They were very used to bland red, white, and blue jerseys. They all kind of look the same throughout their entire history of the franchise until they broke these out. And Allen Iverson was an icon for basketball. He was the first guy to wear like baggy clothes and headbands and chains into the locker room. Like he was changing the game. So I think having this different, bold, and at that point new era look was the perfect transition, and they had the perfect leader to do so. And then I'll also kind of piggyback on to the other one that's to the right of it that we brought up as well, which was the Seattle Supersonics. That back when they had the glove, Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, they were a team that also met Michael in the finals and failed. But their color scheme very Christmassy with the red, white, and green.
Hmm.
But I love the Sonics font with the basketball in there, and they incorporate the Space Needle and some of their jerseys as well, which I thought was very cool. And I wish Seattle never lost that franchise, but they were one as well. And Smalls, I'll let you get to yours.
Yep. So I actually have this jersey because I think it's so unbelievably 90s. It's not even funny. Um, what year was it? I guess it was like 98 or something. Pistons went away from their, um, I guess like early 90s, like Bill Laimbeer, Isaiah Thomas era. Those
Mm-hmm.
jerseys, they moved on to these because it was the 90s. And literally every franchise was doing the same thing. They came up with this ridiculous Pistons logo with like a like horsepower, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Um
sir.
and it's so absurd, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on one, and I was wearing it in the promo. If you were ever see it, I was gonna break it out tonight. I didn't want to be too corny though. I wanted to mix it up a little bit, so I went with just a classic Syracuse orange. But I love these things, man. They're so 90s. It's not even funny. Not even I don't even think they're not good, but that's what makes them good. That's what makes them a
They
great
and they
90s
fit
NBA
the
jersey.
era, and the
Yep.
fact that it was such an alternate that they do have red incorporated with their primary jerseys, but
Hmm.
it's mainly white and blue. Like I'm sporting an early 2000s Ben Wallace Pistons jersey right now. Ben Wallace is my favorite player growing up. Shout out to the Fro. But I think this was so different back then, and it just like you said, it fit the era. This was so 90s, and honestly, there's probably more honorable mentions we could throw in there just because this era was fucking great for basketball.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it like I said, it was again not that I'm saying that today's NBA isn't for kids, but there was just something about growing up when we did. Um, it was so cool to be an NBA fan. There was just, and I think it was probably because of Space Jam, and I think Space Jam was
That's
honestly
also
probably
true.
a huge part of it. But there's something different about it. But Ben, I want to close this out. This has been, I think, honestly, like a great first episode.
Hell
I
yeah, man.
I think we hit it out of the park. The topic, you can't really beat it. I mean, these are probably when you think nostalgic sports, 90s NBA has to pop into your head just because it was so different. But do you have anything else to say to the people before we head out?
All I want to say is if you didn't dig this episode, we've got plenty more in store for you. So please come back next week. And Smalls, thanks for having me a part of it. And I hope
Yep.
everybody has a wonderful 2021. We're able to leave 2020 in the past. We can kick off this new year like we did today with a bang. And cheers, buddy. Happy to be here.
Hey, cheers.